Revenge Office Stories. My boss looked me dead in the eye and told me I was nothing to the company and that I could never leave. He was wrong. Not only did I quit, but I took his entire all-star team with me, and we watched his little empire crumble to dust. This is how I did it. If you believe that toxic bosses should always get what's coming to them, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is a story of karma you won't want to miss. It all started with 9 little words, spoken with the casual arrogance of a king who thought his throne was unshakable. "No one quits me," he said, a smirk playing on his lips. Ever. He wasn't just my boss, he was the self-proclaimed emperor of our small office. And in his mind, we weren't employees, we were his property. He genuinely believed he held my entire future in the palm of his hand. What he didn't get was that in that single moment, he didn't secure my loyalty. He signed the death warrant for his own company. He saw it as a power play. I saw it as a challenge. A challenge I was more than happy to accept. So, this isn't just a story about how I quit my job. This is the story of how I strategically dismantled a tyrant's kingdom, piece by piece, and orchestrated a mass exodus that left his company in ruins. And the best part? It all went down on the one day he'd set aside to celebrate his own greatness, his birthday. To really get how he got there, you have to understand the world he built. I'm Clara, and by the time I was 38, I'd poured over a decade of my life into a company called Apex Innovations. I wasn't just an employee, I was employee number 3. I was the head of operations, but honestly the title was just a label. In reality, I was the one who built its inner workings, the strategist behind its biggest wins, and the person who knew every client, every contract, and every single crack in the foundation. I was there when our office was just 3 desks crammed into a room that always smelled like burnt coffee. I helped our founder, Alan, turn a tiny idea into a multi-million-dollar marketing firm. In those early days, he was charming, driven, real visionary. We all felt like we were part of something special. But success has a funny way of showing you who people really are. It was like King Midas in reverse. Everything Alan touched didn't turn to gold, it turned toxic. The more money the company made, the bigger his ego got, until it was this monstrous, suffocating thing that filled every room. Our fun, collaborative startup vibe slowly curdled into a culture of fear. Alan, our once inspirational leader, had become a petty dictator. His favorite tool? Micromanagement. No task was too small for him to stick his nose in. He'd demand to be CC'd on every single email, then hit reply all to criticize a junior designer's font choice. He'd literally stand over your shoulder, watching you type, offering suggestions that were really just commands to make sure you knew he was in charge. His need for control was absolute. He couldn't stand the thought of the company running for even a minute without him. It wasn't about quality. It was about making sure we all knew we were just cogs in his machine. And then there were the public humiliations. That was his favorite sport. I'll never forget one Tuesday morning meeting. We were pitching a huge campaign to our biggest client. Maya, our brilliant head of digital strategy, a true tech wizard, was walking them through the data. She's a genius who can see patterns and numbers that look like static to the rest of us. But Alan, probably feeling like the spotlight wasn't on him, cut her off mid-sentence. Whoa, let's slow down, Maya," he said with this condescending little laugh. "Try to explain it so us simple, non-robot folks can understand." The clients shifted in their seats. Maya just froze, her face turning beet red. All the air was sucked out of the room. He hadn't just undermined her in front of our most important partner. He'd belittled her. I saw her shoulders slump, that little spark in her. I just, "Go out." After the meeting, I told her she was brilliant and that he was out of line, but the damage was done. And it was a pattern. He'd nag Leo, our amazing creative lead, calling his visionary concepts a little too artsy in front of everyone, only to turn around and pitch those exact same ideas to clients as his own. He'd praise David, our client relations guru, for his people skills, as if the complex relationships he'd spent years building were just simple charm. His toxicity was a poison that seeped into everything. Raises never matched inflation, let alone merit. He'd say things like, the prestige of working at Apex is part of the compensation package. He'd cancel the holiday party to cut costs, and then roll up the next week in a brand new luxury car. We were a skeleton crew doing the work of a team twice our size, all while he bragged about his record profits. But through it all, the team I'd helped build was incredible. We were a tight-knit family, held together not by love for the company, but by a shared resistance to its leader. Leo, the artist whose soul was being crushed. Maya, the analyst whose genius was being ignored. David, the diplomat constantly cleaning up Alan's messes. And Sam, a bright-eyed junior associate who was accidentally getting a masterclass in what a horrible workplace looks like. We had each other's backs in whispered chats by the coffee machine and at after-work drinks where we'd all vent. We were the engine of Apex innovations. Alan just owned the car. My breaking point wasn't a big explosion. It was a slow, creeping realization. I was 38. I looked at the next 10 or 20 years of my life, and the thought of spending them walking on eggshells in that gilded cage, watching good people get their spirits broken, was just unbearable. I had built his dream, and in the process, I'd completely forgotten about my own. So I started looking, quietly at first. Then an amazing opportunity fell right into my lap, a senior executive role at a rival firm. More money, a better title, and a CEO who actually talked about his team with respect. Imagine that. I typed up my resignation letter, my hand shaking a little, not from fear, but from this overwhelming sense of relief. I walked into Alan's glass-walled shrine to himself and put the envelope on his desk. He didn't even open it. He just glanced at it, then up at me, like I'd just started speaking another language. What's this? It's my resignation, Alan, I said, my voice totally steady. My last day will be in 2 weeks. He laughed. Not a nice laugh. It was a sharp, disbelieving bark. A joke. Very funny, Clara. Now, what did you really need to talk about? I'm not joking, I said. And that's when he dropped the act. The whole charismatic mask fell away, and I saw the raw, unfiltered Tyrant underneath. His face hardened. He stood up, leaned his knuckles on the desk, his classic intimidation pose. Let me be perfectly clear, he hissed, his voice dangerously low. You are not quitting. This letter is meaningless. You work for me. I discovered you. I made you. You think you can just walk out of here with a decade of my company's secrets in your head? You're nothing without me. I was just stunned. I expected him to be mad, to counteroffer, maybe even act sad. I did not expect this. This claim of ownership. I found my voice. Alan, I've already signed an offer. It's happening. He just smirked. That same infuriating smirk. He picked up my letter, tore it right in half, and dropped the pieces in his trash can. This is a joke, right? You're not going anywhere, he said. And then came the 9 words that sealed his fate. No one quits me. Ever. I just stared at him. Something inside me that had been fraying for years finally just snapped. But it wasn't loud. It was a cold, silent, and terrifyingly clear fracture. The anger was so pure it was almost calming. In that instant, he wasn't my boss anymore. He was a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be dismantled. My simple plan to just quit and move on died right there. A new plan, a much bigger and, I'll admit, a much more malicious one, started taking shape. He hadn't just refused my resignation. He had thrown down a gauntlet, and I was going to pick it up. I walked out of his office in a total daze and went back to my desk. The whole office was silent, watching me. They'd all heard the yelling. They knew something had gone down. Alan swaggered out a moment later, looking triumphant, like he'd just won some great victory. He thought he'd put me in my place. He thought it was over. For my new plan to work, I had to let him believe that. Step 1, malicious compliance. I sent him an email and CC'd HR, which was just one poor soul who was terrified of him. It read, "Alan, following our conversation, I've reconsidered. You're right. My place is here at Apex. I'm formally rescinding my resignation." His reply was instant and smug. "Glad you saw the light, Clara." He saw a win. I saw an opportunity to buy time. He dared me to quit. He said I couldn't. Fine. I wouldn't. Not yet. I would stay, and from inside the walls of his own company, I would burn it to the ground. First, I called my employment lawyer. I didn't lay out my grand, vengeful plan, of course. I just framed it as a query. I told her about the verbally abusive boss, the hostile environment, and how he'd refused to accept my resignation and threaten my career. I asked about my rights. Her advice was simple and became the foundation of my entire strategy. Document everything. Every condescending email, every public put down. Every time he stole credit for our work, it was all ammunition. So I became a meticulous archivist of his toxicity. I created a secure cloud folder, totally separate from our company's servers. I started forwarding his nasty emails to a private account and kept a time-stamped daily journal of every single transgression. The time he called Sam an overpaid intern for a typo. The time he screamed at David on a client call. The time he lost Leo's bonus paperwork for the third quarter in a row. It was a soul-crushing task, but with every entry, my resolve got harder. This wasn't about feelings anymore. This was about building a case. Phase 2 was the most delicate part, building my alliance. I couldn't just go around offering people jobs. That's transactional. This had to be a liberation. I had to unite them not just against Alan, but for something better. I started with Leo, the creative director. I caught him after a particularly brutal review where Alan had torn apart one of his most brilliant concepts, calling it navel gazing. That evening, I found Leo just sketching furiously in his notebook. He's going to present a watered-down version of that to the client next week, isn't he? I asked softly. Leo didn't even look up. He always does. It was a brilliant concept, Leo, I said. Truly. It deserved better. He finally looked at me, his eyes just bone-tired. What's the point of having ideas if they just get stolen and mutilated? I feel like I'm designing wallpaper for my own cage. I leaned in. What if you weren't in a cage? What if you were in a studio? A place where your boldest ideas were the starting point, not the problem? What if you were trusted? I didn't offer him a job. I just planted a seed. Next was Maya. Her problem wasn't just the humiliation. Alan refused to approve any budget for the software she needed, calling them unnecessary expenses. She was a genius working with Stone Age tools. I approached her with a practical problem. Maya, I'm trying to map out our workflow, and with our current software, the projections are a joke. If we just had the Zeta Analytics suite, we could get this done in a day. She gave me a wry smile. Tell that to the man who thinks a software subscription is too much, but a new Maserati is a business necessity. It's not just inefficient, Maya, I said, my voice serious. It's disrespectful. It's telling the most skilled person here that her time isn't valuable. Imagine what you could build if you had the best tools. A blank check for the tech stack of your dreams. I saw a flicker in her eyes. It was the hunger of a master who'd been forced to work with junk for too long. Seed planted. With David, the client guy, it was about the ethical tightrope Alan made him walk. Alan would promise clients the moon, and David would be left to apologize for the inevitable failures. Clara, he told me at an after-work thing. I spent 3 hours today talking a client down because Alan promised them a full campaign launch in 2 weeks. We haven't even conceptualized it. I feel less like a partner and more like a professional apologist. You're the reason they stay, David. I told him, and I meant it. They don't trust Apex. They trust you. What if you could make promises you could actually keep? What if your name was tied to a company built on integrity? Seed planted. Sam, the junior, was the easiest and most important. They were brilliant and were learning that this toxic behavior was normal. I started mentoring them, actively showing them the contrast between my style and Alan's. After Alan berated them one afternoon, I pulled them aside. "That wasn't leadership," I said. "That was bullying. This is not normal. And you deserve to grow in a place that nurtures you, not one that terrifies you." This was a quiet campaign over several weeks. I was weaving a web, connecting their individual pain points to one powerful idea. We could build our own boat instead of complaining about the captain of the sinking ship. The final piece was the craziest. I wasn't just getting them new jobs. I was creating them. I spent my nights and weekends drafting a business plan. I took out a huge personal loan against my home and found a silent partner. I was going to start my own agency, built on everything Alan hated: collaboration, respect, and shared success. Once the funding was secure, I called a secret meeting. Private room, restaurant way across town. Leo, Maya, and David were there. I laid it all out: the business plan, the funding, the vision. "I'm not asking you to jump to another company," I told them, my heart pounding. "I'm offering you a chance to be founders. I'm offering equity, a stake in what we build together. A company where the creative director has final say on creative, where the head of tech has the budget she needs, where our client relations guy sets our integrity. A company where we are all partners." The silence was deafening. I saw the fear in their eyes. This was a huge risk, but underneath it, I saw the seeds I'd planted start to sprout. It was Leo who spoke first. "When do we start?" A wave of relief, so powerful it almost knocked me over, washed through me. One by one, they were in. We even recruited Sam, offering them a junior partner role. The rebellion was real. All we needed was the perfect moment. And then Sam forwarded an email. An all-company invite from Alan's assistant. A special celebration in honor of Alan's 45th birthday and a year of unprecedented success for Apex Innovations. He was throwing himself a massive party at the office on a Friday, and he was flying in his most prestigious client, the one from Maya's disastrous meeting, to impress them. The poetic justice was just too perfect. It was a day dedicated to his ego. It was the perfect day to take it all away. D-Day was set. His birthday would be the day Apex Innovations died. The final weeks were a blur of clandestine activity. Spies in our own office. By day, we were model employees. By night, we were a flurry of emails and legal consults. We signed our new partnership agreements, secured an office space, and drafted our resignation letters, all timed for the exact same moment. We were leaving, and we were taking the bridge with us. The day of the party arrived, thick with a strange electric tension only we could feel. The office was decked out in black and gold balloons. A lavish catering spread covered the conference table, complete with a ridiculously large ice sculpture of the Apex logo. And at the center of it all was a massive cake with a sugar sculpture of Alan, fist in the air, a monument to his own ego. Alan was in his element, gliding around with a glass of champagne, his laughter booming. He was wearing an absurdly expensive suit, schmoozing with the few vendors he'd invited. His prize guest, Mr. Harrison, stood beside him, looking mildly impressed. This was Alan's coronation. He had no idea he was the guest of honor at his own corporate funeral. My team and I moved through the party like ghosts, our smiles plastered on, our hearts hammering. We exchanged quick, knowing glances. Each of us had a resignation letter tucked away, a little paper time bomb. At 3 p.m. sharp, Alan clinked his glass. He hopped onto a small stage, beaming like a lighthouse of narcissism. "Thank you all for coming," he began, launching into a rambling speech about himself. He used the word "I" more times than I could count. "When I founded this company, I had a vision. I brought in the Harrison account, and I am so proud of the team I've built to execute my vision." He raised his glass. To me, to Apex, and to another year of unparalleled success. As the room echoed with a weak cheers, my phone buzzed. The signal from Maya. Go. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. Alan, I said, my voice cutting through the chatter. Sorry to interrupt. He turned, annoyed. Clara, what is it? I'm busy. I just wanted to say this has been an illuminating speech, I said, walking towards him. And I have a small gift for you. I pulled the envelope from my jacket and placed it right on top of the cake next to his sugar effigy. It's my letter of resignation. Effective immediately. A stunned silence. Alan's face cycled through confusion. Then anger. Then back to that arrogant smirk. Clara, we've been over this, he sneered, loud enough for Mr. Harrison to hear. This is just embarrassing. As I told you before, no one quits me. You're right about one thing, I said, letting a small, cold smile touch my lips. I'm not going alone. On cue, Leo stepped forward. He walked to the cake and placed his envelope next to mine. My resignation, Alan. Effective immediately. Then Maya. I'm resigning as well. Then David. Sorry it came to this, Alan. Here's my resignation. Then Sam. Then our 2 senior designers. Then our project manager. One by one, my entire department, the heart and soul of the company, walked up and placed a white envelope on that table. In 60 seconds, 12 letters sat in a growing mountain of dissent around his ridiculous cake. The entire operations and creative teams. Everyone. Alan's face had gone from smug to ashen. He stared at the pile of letters, then at our united faces. He looked like he'd been punched. I delivered the final blow. I turned away from Alan's crumbling facade and looked directly at the bewildered Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison, I said, my voice full of confidence. The entire senior team responsible for the strategy, creative, tech, and management of your account has just resigned from Apex Innovations. The talent you've been paying for is standing right here. On Monday, we're launching our own agency, founded on partnership and respect. We would be honored to discuss a seamless transition for your brand, under leadership that actually values the people doing the work. Mr. Harrison's eyes widened. He looked from me to the silent team behind me, and then to the sputtering, speechless Alan. He was a smart businessman. He got it instantly. He gave Alan a look of profound disappointment, then turned to me and gave a curt, decisive nod. Let's talk, he said. We turned as one and walked out. We didn't look back. We left Alan standing alone in his party, surrounded by wilting balloons and a melting ice sculpture, staring at a birthday cake covered in the ruins of his empire. The fallout was swift and brutal. Mr. Harrison became our flagship client. The story of the mass exodus on Alan's birthday spread through our industry like wildfire. Alan was left with a ghost ship. With no one to do the work, he lost his clients. Within 6 months, the company I'd poured a decade of my life into, the company Alan had driven into the ground with his ego, filed for bankruptcy. Our new beginning, by contrast, was glorious. We called our new agency Phoenix Collective, a name Leo came up with. It was perfect. We had risen from the ashes of Alan's toxic workplace. We built the company we'd always dreamed of, a place of loud debates, laughter, and real innovation. We weren't just colleagues, we were partners. We were thriving. And that's how a single arrogant sentence, "No one quits me," brought a whole company down. It's a crazy story, but it's proof that your value is never determined by a toxic boss. A company isn't a building or a logo. It's people. Alan thought people were replaceable cogs in his machine. He learned the hard way that they weren't just cogs. They were the entire engine. His power came from his title, but true power comes from the respect you earn, something he never understood. Now, I have to know, have you ever had a boss who thought they owned you? What's the most outrageous, arrogant thing a manager has ever said to you? Drop your stories in the comments below. I read every single one, and we can all compare notes on terrible bosses. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed seeing a healthy serving of karma delivered ice cold, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. Until next time, know your worth, trust your team, and never, ever let anyone tell you that you can't leave.